Hello. Now, I have a question for people who are based, right? Does anyone refer to it as Twitter when it's still like bullshit drama and retards, and then X only when I'm referring to porn? Because X stands for porn, right? Um, because that's how I view it, right? I always view it as I call Twitter three things. I call it X when I'm looking at porn. Twitter when I see dumbass drama like this, and the world's largest porn site, formerly known as Twitter but renamed into the more honest label of X. When like someone like tries to sell me some bullshit. um, yeah. Now, obviously, I don't really like Twitter anymore. But it's never really like changed. It just I got tired of what was going on there, right? Like people like, but you use Blue Sky, yeah. But here's the cool thing about Blue Sky, right? Um, I can filter out like the stuff very effectively that I don't want to see. So I only really see it when I want to engage with it, and then I'll just look at my following page, and it'll be just porn and nothing else, right? That's the beauty of Blue Sky. If I'm not wanting to engage in drama, I don't see any drama. I just see like Pokemon pictures and furry porn, you know? That's the good part about Blue Sky. I can make it so I only actually see what I want to see.
There's this VTuber situation right now. Put on some music. There's a little VTuber situation right now with who is a VTuber. True. So true.
I mean, that's the truest statement of all time, to be honest.
Apparently they made a post here that says that men deserve to be loved and treated right. Which is
like the least controversial statement one can ever really make. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we should treat people correctly, right? Like, and notice this is like just a pancakes and waffles thing, right? This is pancakes deserve to be eaten. And then they're getting responses of, so you think waffles should just be thrown in the trash, right? You're just a pick me for big pancake. like if you replace like this like if you replace genders and sexes and all that, right? And identity, whatever, right? If you replace them with pastries and it sounds ridiculous how you're responding, that's like the point, right? But if someone's like says I love pancakes and I hate waffles, right? That doesn't sound ridiculous to respond, why do you hate waffles, right? But if someone says I love pancakes and you see someone say, so why do you hate waffles then? That sounds retarded. And it's the same way with every other conversation, right? The response that you're giving doesn't match the words that are being said. That's Twitter in a nutshell, right?
It's a very typical VTuber post. Well, not this specifically, but the style of the post is very typical of VTubers. Just the topic isn't typical. Usually the topic is like some other thing, like about
like people always say, well, this is just a dog whistle, and then like it'll be like you just said, like okay Karen or something like that, right? Now I'll be honest, there are dog whistles, right? And most of them are from groypers who you can pretty easily ignore. It's a lot harder to do it on Twitter nowadays because Block doesn't do shit anymore. But still,
some other social justice sort of a thing.
You can still ignore it.
Kitsu just making this statement here. And it blew up. Of course it did, right? So you have a ton of people that got really upset. And if we look into their X, you can see a
Funny
bunch
German
of the posts.
Fox lady did nothing wrong.
Let's see. I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, here. All of the posts that came out after it. I mean, over here we've got a lovely person with a DM here. isekai yourself, ugly, pick me. But here you have this like, I hope you get raped by men since you like them so much. Go buy a gun and isekai yourself, ugly, pick me. Like, just wild shit. I wonder, like, man, what gets people to say this kind? Like, what makes people like this? Do a lot of people need to take their meds? I mean, this is like I'm gonna be real with you guys. This is just X in a nutshell. I'm not really.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what it is, right? A lot of people are trolls, like from the old internet, right? So a lot of this is just old internet, like being on the new internet, right? Like 4chan era, like trolling. And then a lot of this is people taking it seriously. And so it's kind of like going in two levels, right? A lot of these, like, I don't know, Beck is probably a 4chan troll, right? But then there'll be people who take Beck seriously and don't realize that they're just being a 4chan troll, like an anon, right? And on 4chan, this is very common, and everyone knows this is just trolling. But on Twitter, right, you got to remember, right, like the reason why this is so popular is that normal people use Twitter, right? Nobody who is normal uses 4chan. Normal people just trying to live their lives and do their jobs are on Twitter. They're on Blue Sky as well, right? That's ultimately why, like, certain places it just isn't okay to say. And so they're doing this, right? They're saying, we will rape you with 9,000 penises, or whatever they're saying, right? And yeah, people are just responding like normal people. And they're like the thing is, you think that this person's mad, and this person might be. But a large portion of them are probably just doing this to be shitty people in general. For clout, because they think it's funny. So you gotta remember, about 50% of these people are not serious at all. About 35% more are not even people at all. And the remaining 50% are actually honest people, and they need to fucking, like, get some therapy. But, like, that's just how it is, right? A lot, like the way you deal with people like this is you just ignore it, right? Usually, because genuine haters, right? Like, they'll continue, but, like, they'll start getting funny with it, right? If you just keep ignoring it. Now I don't follow that, right? You've seen me engage with trolls way too often. Because I like to, right? I find it funny. I find it therapeutic. But not everyone does, right? Not everyone does. So, like, that's kind of the thing there, Don't engage with it unless you're enjoying it, basically.
Really surprised. Of course, that person has that banner. Then we have this post here by a person, whatever. I'm not it. You deserve to get unfollowed and more. You pick me scum of the earth. And then she replies with, "I hope you find love in your life." That's a really good, like, counter. That the funny thing is,
yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a very good counter. Now that is, of course, considering the potential that this is a person and not a bot. Like, we don't know, right? But we do know that it's NIMBYing, right? What's NIMBYing? We'll see how it says trans rights, Palestine rights. It has, like, I don't know, some, like, gay Steven Universe in anime style icon. Like that, like this, there can be legit people and all that like that, right? That aren't NIMBYs, right? This isn't, like, when you see all this combined, it's a NIMBY, right? There'll be, like, pronouns in their bio, and they won't actually be trans, but they'll have the trans flag and Palestine flag. There'll be a white woman usually, sometimes a white man. Almost always a white person, though. But they're LARPing as a black woman online. Yeah, I'm calling you out, NIMBYs. Look, here's what happens, right? When these people these people scream that people need help, but guess what, right? Do you want them in your backyard? Yeah, see, that's what the NIMBY stands for. It stands for not in my backyard, right? So these guys are basically, saying they want everyone to get the help that they need, but they don't want to do it themselves. That's why they want the government to do it, right? That's why you never see any of these douchebags run like a legitimate charity organization or anything. You never see these guys called Mother Teresa or something, right? You never do that. You see Mother Teresa called Mother Teresa, right? They're the ones that are running charities where they help homeless people and feed starving and all that, right? I'm just saying, like there are left wing people who do it, right? That's why I'm saying NIMBYs, right? It's a specific kind of leftist, right? It's not every leftist, but these ones are a vocal minority. They're very vocal. They will never shut the fuck up. These are the guys that try to push like Latinx on my girlfriend, who is a trans Mexican. And she sometimes like buys into it, but a lot of times she's like, yeah, you know what? Like she's basically being bullied into accepting a term she doesn't really fucking believe in. This is really like disgusting. I keep like seeing like it in real time, and I'm like, yeah, this is just disgusting that they're doing this to her. Like her friends aren't, right. She has a core friend group that doesn't do it. I'm not, right. I have no idea. Like it's like someone in her college or some bullshit. I'm like, what the fuck? Like I'm gonna be honest, like that needs to be kind of spoken about too. Like remember, remind you, she's in California, right? So her like area, right, was just like on fire like a couple months ago, right? And those fires were visible from outer fucking space. And this wasn't even the first time in like the past like election cycle that it happened, like because the fire started before Trump became president again, right? So we've had like 3, maybe even all 4 of the Biden presidential winters having these fucking space-seeable fires. Like that's kind of fucked up. Like what I mean. Like a lot of people are like Gavin Newsom needs to be out of office and that mayor needs to be like impeached. You know what I'm saying? Gavin Newsom and that mayor need to be sent to federal prison to be anally raped by Luigi Mangione. I mean, like specifically put them in Luigi Mangione's cell and have him mainly because that's the thing. I think Luigi should be sent to prison for life, but his sentence should be like he gets these guys like Eric Adams. He gets to fucking beat him up and rape him in his cell. Gavin Newsom, you know what I mean? Like that's his punishment. Not even a punishment. Like we reward him, but we don't let him out in regular society again. Right? That's what I think, like, ultimately needs to happen. Like, this is the guy, like, we threaten politicians that we'll put him in the cell with. Right? Like, hey, you're a corrupt piece of shit. If you keep doing this, we'll put you in with Luigi Mangione.
These are the people who call everyone else
Yeah,
Nazi.
of course.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just make him like a legend. Like, if you're a corrupt piece of shit, we'll shove you in with him when we arrest you, right? That'll instantly stop a lot of this fucking corruption. I bet if we just threaten to put him in prison specifically with like a famous like serial killer who murdered a billionaire, you know.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for the bits. Of course, they call everyone Nazis, but you have here just the.
Yeah, they call everyone Nazis, but they act more like Nazis than the fucking grapers do, right? Like the actual open Nazis act less like Nazis than these assholes. Isn't that funny?
Like, absolutely, like, legendary reply. I hope you find love in your life because nothing pisses them off more than this. Like, than just like kindness sets them off. I hope too. And then they reply with, I hope that the 2 seconds of love from right-wing Nazi scum. Yeah, Nazis. It's always Nazis. Is the only attention we'll ever get.
It's always Nazis, man, with you. You always talking about the Nazis. You know, my father fought in World War II against them Nazis. I don't know. That has nothing to do with it. I just wanted to like put on like a stereotypical like Jewish Italian accent from New York. Like why you always talking about them Nazis, man? Why you always talk about them Nazis? I find it funny that they keep bringing up the Nazis, and I'm like, I gotta find out like creative ways to make fun of that, right? Because I've run out of ways. Like I've made fun of them so many times for that I've legitimately I have to come up with new ways to make fun of them. So I'm like I have to put on like different accents of like stuff, you know.
Those same
Wise guy, eh? He's talking about them Nazis, eh?
men you are seeking validation from wouldn't hesitate to spike your drink, grape you while you scream for mommy. Like,
What? As a fellow person who was raped by their stepfather in a very similar situation to what you're saying, I have a question, right? Beck, right? I have a question, a sincere question. Very sincere. Have you got help yet?
I was about to say something. Like, I was about to say, like, what about one day when you have a son? Like, do you think your son deserves to be seen and treated this way? But then I realized they probably won't have kids. I guess that doesn't work. That's how I see it. I mean, like, how do you feel about like all of the men in your life, like your family members and stuff? It's like, how do you get to a position where you just literally hate men like this? It's deranged. It actually started with this post here. So we've got this one right here. I legitimately had people unfollow me over this. I believe it, honestly. I've had the same thing happen to me over similar issues. So 100% can see that being the case.
I will say this: that Estacado guy is a bot. So like, I wouldn't give him credence at all. Like, this isn't a man. Estacado is a bot, right? But that's beside the point. Like, you know, there are plenty of men who also feel like validated from this. But Estacado is a bot. Like, you can kind of tell due to the AI generated Warhammer pick instead of like any like of the millions of great Warhammer art or screenshots from a video game, where an actual Warhammer fan would probably see plenty of good art to use as an icon, right? We had them just like not even play the game or buy the tabletop, just use AI, you know? Like if it's something like an identity thing, right? Where it's like a personal portrait or whatever, I can sometimes see it, right? But this is just like generic AI, right? Like, okay, this looks like something that I could already get just by opening up like the lore books and stuff, right? So like that's my thing. Like I could get art that looked like that easily just by being a fan of Warhammer, right? And then this guy's using AI to basically get something that already exists, like not something new, something that already fucking exists. Like that's my issue with like when people do that. It's like that's how you know like they aren't even really a fan of the thing, because they aren't even like engaging in the actual media that exists. Like imagine if Flash Gits did that, right? Like Flash Gits are Warhammer artists, and then like their profile picture was just changed to like that, right? Like what the fuck? Like it would be funny because they are comedians, so they would do that. They might, if they ever watch this video, they might just do that just to fuck with me because that's who they are. But like, normal people aren't doing that, right? Like it's not even AI art, right? It's that what is. Like you can get this for free without the AI, and it will look better and more consistent, right? So like that's what I'm getting at, right? Like, you know, like if you buy the game, even you can get it and it will look better, and you can customize it in real time and stuff, right? And anyone who is actually a fan of Warhammer will just do that, right? So like that's how I know that that's fake, right?
Case.
But like that's that. Like look at Reason, right? Reason has an actual profile pic, right? Um and yeah, they're saying good riddance to the people who unfollowed Kitsu, by the way, right? So yeah, I would give more credence to Reason, right? Because Reason, well, one, they're called Reason, but also, you know, they're an actual person, and you know, yeah, I agree. Good riddance to the people who unfollowed you for saying a pretty normal statement.
It's just retards. True. Bro, why are men not allowed to love or respect? I don't get it. It's so weird because
What's really fuck up is that some of these people have sons.
yeah, I mean that's terrible. The crazy thing about this is that the people that always do this, and like this happens all the time, the people who
And here's the thing, right? There are AI accounts that are legit people, right? That'll have like an AI generated picture as their thing, right? But it'll either be like more corporate looking, to like, okay, this is like a, you know, open AI kind of thing, or like they're like an AI bro kind of thing like that, or like the AI will be used for like something that they couldn't just get for free normally, right? It's sort of like NFTs were like a thing that was useful, but everyone always just had those fucking ugly monkeys. Like Raphael Grassetti did some banging NFTs, and then everyone's like, oh, I want this ugly fucking monkey, right? They're like, why is this ugly fucking monkey still worth less than this amazing frog sculpt that Raphael Grassetti did? I don't know. Maybe because the artwork that Raphael Grassetti did. Well, first off, it's by Raphael Grassetti. You know, an amazing artist that's been in the industry for over a decade and has like some of the best looking games under his belt. I mean, even if you don't like God of War Ragnarok, you can't say that game looked bad, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like when it came to the art direction, that game looked phenomenal. But like that's kind of the thing, right? You know, that's a guy who made an NFT, and it did technically sell well, right? It did sell very well, and it for a lot of money. Like obviously, there's only one sale for NFTs, but it sold for quite a pretty penny. But then all these other NFTs are just ugly monkeys, and everyone's like, why is my ugly monkey profile picture not worth as much as this guy's very talented artwork? And I'm like, because like the artwork that Raphael Grassetti did is more appealing and thus will have more value. Like there's no scarcity doesn't increase value unless people actually find it valuable in the first place, right? So the only value they're getting is scarcity and FOMO, right? Scarcity alone doesn't give value, so they do the FOMO as part of it. But even FOMO, you need like another source to really give high value. So they have scarcity and FOMO. That's it. That's all the ugly monkeys. But then you have, you know, Raphael Grassetti's amazing artwork. And yeah, it sells for more, and it because it's more useful, right? That frog sculpt he did, like I know the NFT. It was specifically like a Pepe, like a rich Pepe thing. Like he's like a Pepe, like I'm thinking rich kind of thing. It was kind of funny, like because he already was kind of rich, and then he did a Pepe, the frog, meme about that, and then someone bought it for like $20 million or some shit, right? That's like that's an actual like that like can understand being an NFT, right? It's a one of a kind Raphael Grassetti, right? It's like what you would see in museums. Like it's a one of a kind you know, sculpture. But then like people stopped liking museums once it once it went from one of a kind, you know, Bernini to a one of a kind or one of a kind Monet to a one of a kind that guy who was a janitor like 3 years ago. You know, like, yeah, Bernini, right? Amazing work. The Rappa did Persephone, right? The statue of David that he did, which was another statue of David, not the one by Michelangelo, where he's like really angry and about to swing. Where he's like Michelangelo, it's like he already swung and like he's like, I'm relaxing kind of thing. You get the idea, right? Um, there's all these amazing statues and paintings and stuff, right? Like a good way to say it, right? The paintings in the Sistine Chapel are not just worth a lot because there's only one of them. They're also worth a lot because it's the paintings in the Sistine fucking Chapel. You know, like every single one of those is amazing to look at. Okay, like the fact that there's only one ugly monkey doesn't make me interested in the ugly fucking monkey. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you own an ugly fucking monkey. Good for you.
Who rage out over this kind of thing are always the people that try to push the narrative that they're the truly kind and caring people. Like, oh, I care so much about LGBT issues, trans issues, Palestine.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. And the funny thing is, like with the whole like Palestine thing, right? Did you know that like if people just shut the fuck up about promoting Hamas, like a lot more people would probably be on board? Like people don't hate like the innocent people, like women and children there. People hate Hamas, right? So all you gotta do is drop the fucking Hamas shit. But they never do. And I'm like, okay, well, fine. Well, fuck you. Kill the women and children then just to piss this guy off, right? Because a lot of people sympathize for the innocent women and children. Because first off, most of them don't even know what the fuck's going on. Especially the kids, right? And second off, like, yeah, they're being bombed and shit for the actions of a terrorist organization that took them over and basically robbed their own country from their elected Fatah party at gunpoint, and have ruled at gunpoint ever since. You know, and the only reason 70% of people, quote, support them is because if they don't, they'll get shot. And yeah, that's actually a thing. There's a reason why there's specifically a 70% in like Russia as well, in China. That's what I call the commie number, right? It's not always commies. Obviously, Hamas are a different type of thing. But it's basically when authoritarians want non-authoritarians to think all their populations, like a large majority of their population, support them, they say 70%, right? Because that sounds like a believable, like, it's not all of them. And it's not that, it's most of them, but it's not all of them, right? But it also, like, sort of like sounds like, okay, I might not know anyone who supports him, but that kind of sounds like a number that's believable in the like location too, right? So people don't call it out, but pretty much all the time it's because it's not actually the real number, and it's a fake number because there are some people who do. That it's believable enough because those some people are going to be loud vocal minorities, right? And so people online being NIMBYs are supporting Hamas vocally. And I'm like, no, fuck Hamas. It's not even just like what they're doing to Israel and the IDF. They're also doing shit to Palestine. They literally ruled their people at gunpoint. Like anyone who defends Hamas needs to fucking like shut the fuck up. They are not defensible, right? Now, IDF, there's actually more defenses for. That's how fucked up Hamas is, okay? Okay? Get that in your fucking skull brains, okay? The people killing all the Palestinians are more okay than Hamas, right? And it's not just in people's eyes. It's when you know what Hamas is doing and what they're guilty of, you will think it too. Hamas are not good people. But Hamas needing to die doesn't mean little Ahmed needs to die too, right? Why does little Almeida need to die because Hamas are pieces of shit? And that's my point, right? But for all these people, all these NIMBYs, right, that have like the Palestine flag in their bio or username or whatever, piss me the fuck off because of that. No one's talking about the Palestinian babies like that, right? Except for maybe like a troll. But people are talking about Hamas like that. Because, yeah, nobody fucking likes Hamas. Get that in your head. They're bad people. They're ontologically evil, okay?
Ukraine, etc. They'll put all the flags in there. And yet they're almost always the most hateful people. And
I like BLM is another one. Like I saw like someone who was extremely racist and bigoted have BLM, the trans flag, and like the gay flag and all that in all their bio. And then like they canceled my one friend for like a thing that they said in a private Telegram group that was kind of shitty. Like I'm not going to defend what he said. I will defend that, what he said, was jokes, and that if you find them unfunny, that's okay. But also, they're just jokes, right? But ultimately, right, these people are, like, saying all this shit, and then they're, like, dunking on my friend, right? Calling him, like, all sorts of labels like transphobic and racist and all that. And then like you go in and you see how they view trans people and gay people and black people and all that. And it's like some of the most bigoted and most disgusting shit. I'm talking about Fresh Renders, by the way. Haha. I want to name drop that asshole again because I fucking hate you. I really do. And you deserve every bit of it, just so you know. You know who you are. You know what you did. You know what you say. You know what you believe. Fuck you from the bottom of my heart. If you're canceling my friend and trying to cancel me for, quote, being a Nazi sympathizer, and yet you're more like a Nazi than any of the people you've called that. Fuck you, sincerely. From the bottom of my heart, fuck you, you piece of shit.
It's wild. It's like, I don't know if it's projection or if it's just something wrong with their brain. But they end up being the most vile hate like people that are harboring like intense levels of hatred.
Yeah, almost it's always that, right? I sometimes feel like they get off to it. It's like, oh, I made this guy get canceled today. Oh, I'm gonna come.
It's every time. Yeah, the compassion and empathy crowd. Yeah, exactly. They never have any idea what they're talking about either. You think it's a mental health issue? I think in some cases it can be a mental health issue, but I think the issue is more societal. I really think Neko Hell there says it's a social plague. I think I agree with that. I kind of do see it more as a social plague. And again, like I talked about this before.
Brains.
I don't think it's some people are just born inferior, like that person said. You have to be bred into this kind of ideology. No one's born with this kind of thinking. Like their parents might raise them in an inferior way, but that's like, not really being born inferior. Like if they got adoptive parents early on who actually showed them real love and care and didn't actually show them this bullshit ideology, they wouldn't be like this, right? So it's not it's not like them. Their parents are just treating them poorly, or maybe it's like their teacher, whatever it is. It's indoctrination, ultimately, is what it is.
Release bonding and reward chemicals when grouping together for witch hunts.
Like, being born inferior is like me. I'm retarded, right? Like, that's a genetic thing. I have schizophrenia, which is partially genetic and partially environmental, right? And stuff like that, right? But, that you could argue that's born inferior. But born inferior isn't like being this Twitter brain shit. That's raised inferior. There's a big difference there. People don't act like this because they're born that way. They act like this because they're raised that way. Big difference.
Which makes sense, cause the ones that didn't have that trait wouldn't have been in the group and eventually would have become targets. So these people are addicts getting a rush from being hateful.
Yeah, I can 100% see that. And again, I've seen this before, like I said, like
Isn't
on
about
on
time to
Tumblr.
make asylums great again?
I don't know necessarily all of the
Well, here's the thing, right? Asylums are literally just psych wards that you stay longer. Um, like li- like anyone who's like, oh, we'll just have electroshock therapy and stuff. Like the reason people don't do that is because it doesn't actually fucking work, right? And you're just torturing people. That's not really like that makes no sense. If like the goal is to make them like mentally like less unwell, right? What you should do, instead, is fund fund like psych wards and stuff better, so that people actually give a fuck. Or better yet, replace all the staff that don't give a fuck with people who do. Because I've been to a psych ward recently. Like when I was a kid, those staff were very active, right? And when I was a young adult, they still were active. It took like until like 5, 6 years ago, right? I was in one like 2 years ago because of a crash out, right? Like I was literally like dying in the cold too before I went to it. Um, and that psych ward, right? They did nothing, right? And there's a couple I've been that were like that. But they all like were like post COVID. Pre COVID, I went to a psych ward. We were singing "Kumbaya, my lord, Kumbaya," right? Stuff like that. We were having fun, doing groups, having actual therapy. Everyone was like calming down and enjoying themselves. Sometimes like some asshole would try to ruin things, but ultimately like we had actual genuine therapy, right? And stuff like that, right? And then in this newest one, like nothing really happened. You know what I mean? Like that's ultimately the thing. And like one of the dudes that was there, like at the last time I was there, was like a massive fucking criminal too. Like you know what I mean? Like this dude was like sincerely like immensely racist and bigoted and all that. He would like smear shit everywhere and all this shit to like and he um like he like kept bullying all the black people and stuff, and he's just a fucking psycho cunt, right? Um and it was like, dog, like why the fuck is this asshole here? Like he's got prison, like he's got like tattoos he had from prison. He's clearly a fucking massive racist asshole. And like half the people here are black. He's not respecting any of you, right? But also at the same time, I was like, well, you guys aren't really respecting us either. But he's not respecting you or us. So, like we kind of like we're like, hey, look, just go on the staff and not us, and we'll be fine. Because like that's the thing, right? Like ultimately, those people those people like who weren't doing their jobs made me like feel less sympathetic to them. Because that's ultimately the thing. Yeah, you kind of need to like actually fucking give a shit about people if you're running a fucking psych ward, right? And a lot of them, used to, and now it seems like they don't anymore.
the people are actually
Like I'd argue that's another thing. Like a lot of like these psych wards don't even want to do their jobs anymore.
traditionally crazy, like in like a medical sense. Everyone should read classic feminist books to understand why hate man is the real goal. Again, like I saw a lot of this like 10 years ago.
Yeah, but like very few of the feminists even read classic feminist books. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think most people know like how bad it is, even who have this ideology, because they don't know where it comes from, right? Because most people, it's like, well, they see the surface level stuff, and the surface level stuff is good, right? Equal rights for women is a good thing, right? But when it's founded upon, well, we don't actually want equal rights. We want or any equal rights or equal fights or anything like that. We want to be like put on a pedestal, right, and worshipped as goddesses. Um, well, that's bad, right? And it seems like that's like a thing with like the trans ideology a lot too, right? Like like there's some people like me. It's like, okay, look, if someone wants to do that, like personally, like as a fetish, that's fine. But I'm not someone's goddess, right? Like, okay, well, okay, I'm not someone's goddess who isn't like it's a sexual like relationship thing. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure. But like once it's offline or off fetish thing, and we're not having sexual relations at all, I'm not your goddess. I'm a person with like who just looks like a little effeminate and has a massive dick. Okay, like you know what I mean? Like that. Like I'm not asking for worship. I might ask for like a little friendship or something, but like worship, sex stuff. No, fuck you. We're not. Like I don't. But like there's people who genuinely believe like that's how we should be treated. I'm like no. Like if you want to treat me like that, that's fine, right? Get down on your knees, bitch. But you know what I mean? Like no, we don't need all to be treated like that. Now you can treat me like that. Yeah, look at my feet, bitch. Like come on, right now, right? like to them, right? But like, yeah, like if you want to simp, that's one thing. But like, don't ask other people to simp. You know?
Like even longer than that, like coming out of places like Tumblr. Fishy says, does this mean a society telling me I am disposable and to be used and thrown away is wrong? I don't think, I think it's wrong to tell anybody that, really. Like there's a lot going on here, right? It's like a lot of these people, they only really care. They only show that they care about people only when they're useful to them. And again, like the best example I have of this is during the election. Latinos mattered like a lot. And then
Exactly. This is a good one.
Instant they all voted for Trump, it was like, yeah, go get deported, don't care. It's wild.
They
like,
didn't even all vote. They didn't even all vote for Trump. Like, I don't think my girlfriend voted for Trump, but like they also kind of like harassed her because I think like one of her family members did. It's really disgusting, like how those people propagate. You know,
it's crazy. Gex says, as a Latino, it's eye-opening to me. Yeah. Angry and screeching ones, they don't spend time with their families. They spend their time terminally online, the social media, looking at. I wonder if this really is just like kind of a social, like a social psychohazard. Basically, people who all hate their families, they congregate online, they make a group to bitch about it. And then in order to like, and then so you join this group, and then they start to tell you the little things that your family does, and they start to chip away at your armor and make you hate your own family too. Because I'm experiencing like sort of the same thing in my family, actually.
To think all of this would have been contained if Tumblr never banned the
not
R18
for me,
stuff.
Not with me specifically, but like my brother.
Yeah, this is the thing, right? We can effectively put this down to Tumblr banning porn and that fucking gorilla dying. A lot of this, right? Like a lot of this is Tumblr banning porn and that goddamn gorilla dying. Like everything like the US economy was like booming. Like here's the funny thing, right? No people were like kind of mad with like the BLM stuff in 2013, but it kind of chilled down by 2016, right? But Obama's economy was really good, right? Like Biden's economy sucked, right? Trump's economy sucked towards the tail end of it, mainly due to COVID, right? I would say a poor response to COVID made that suck, but right, like, but Biden's economy the entire time sucked. You know what I mean? Like, so this guy allegedly worked under Obama, but Obama's economy was fucking great. Like, we had lower gas prices. We had like all this amazing shit we could afford and all that. It was so refreshing. And then Trump came and it was very good still. We didn't really have any real growth. It just stayed the same, which was good, right? But then Biden came and he fucked everything up, right? Oh, COVID did too, but like Biden can't blame COVID or Trump policies after 4 years of it still continuing to get worse, right? Now, from basically another thing though, because it got worse under Biden, like I feel like Trump doesn't even change the economy. He's not fixing it. He's just he's not even really doing anything to change it, right? So it's still continuing to get worse. because it was already under Biden, right? So like we're not doing better like we should. And I don't think it's going to get better because like Trump really like he inherited a great economy last time and he kept it great until COVID. I don't think he could have like done anything with COVID, right? Like that last year, I mean, I don't really think like the best response would have like fixed it either, right? Um he didn't do the best response, but I don't think like it was a horrendous one. And unfortunately, like there wasn't really a good one, right? The best one would still have been bad at the end of his term, right? But like Biden, like the entire time, like he just didn't fucking care. Like COVID ended 3 years ago, like for like anything like that mattered with it, and we're still 2025. We're still having the economic like suffrage of it, you know.
Brother. And I wonder how much of I might be going a little crazy here, guys. Like how much of this is related to like the institutions of mental health that we have, like therapists and stuff. And I'm not saying that it's always bad. Obviously there are cases where people do need help. I'm trying to think of it.
I think no. But like it's because like back when I was a kid, those ones did their jobs, right? That's really the thing. They're not doing their jobs anymore. It's not that. It's also harder to get therapy and all that, right? I don't think that like they're bad. I think the quality has gone down because people aren't caring anymore. I don't really think it's like they're bad conceptually or anything. I think that, or that like it's like some big pharma conspiracy or whatever. I legitimately think, right, that the quality has just gone down for the same reason like NIMBYism has gone up. A lot of these guys just don't fucking give a shit about doing their jobs properly anymore.
In terms of like what I understand because of like my own experiences. You have a problem. Okay. You have a problem. You hate yourself. You hate your life. You go to a therapist and maybe you find something from talking to a therapist that makes it not you. Is that what's, because the truth is like, even with families that are healthy, families that love each other, even in those cases, you're going to have disagreements with people in your family, right? You're always going to have, it's never going to be 100% perfect harmony. Relationships with people is always like a give and take, and there's always points of pressure that occur between people. But
yeah, well, the difference is, right, with family, right, it like unless the family is abusive, it's just that life gets hard at some point, and like you kind of like have different reactions to it, right? So like that's really the issue there, right? Oh, school is hard for your one kid and easy for the other kid, so your one kid like feels bad about like not being as smart as your other kid and like all that. Like there'll be squabbles because of that. That's normal stuff, right?
if you can get underneath one of those points of pressure and then make that the reason why your life is a mess, then you give a convenient thing to blame. And guys, I'm not a psychologist, okay? I'm not a therapist.
Yeah, I don't do that, right? Now, granted, I had a horrendous life. I don't even pretend that like my life was like exceptionally bad. I just like, but so a good way to say it, right? I don't hate all of my family, but I do have like more reason to hate my family than most people do, right? I do hate my father, my stepfather, and my grandmother. But those are also people who like had plenty of time and resources to not abuse me and abuse me, right? Like I'm like these are people who actively chose to abuse me, right? Kind of things, right? Like they weren't struggling or anything or whatever. They just wanted to abuse me. Like my stepfather sexually, my grandmother financially, and my father. I feel like my father legitimately just was a cunt, right? Like I said, like he would like go into like self-help groups and be an asshole to everyone. Like, I don't need help like y'all do. Like, then why the fuck were you there? Like, I did, right? But he wasn't just bringing me there. In fact, half the time he went without me. So, like, I legitimately was using that, like, for my depression and all that, right? And my dad would be like, "Oh, I don't really need it. I'm just fucking around here." Like, what the fuck are you there for then? It'd be like an alcoholic and like a recovering like a recovering alcoholic and or someone like dealing with like dementia and like family issues and all that. And he would be like, "I have nothing." Like, well, then fucking leave then. Let me stay though, but you leave, asshole.
I'm not a psychologist. I'm
And
thinking.
no one spoke up about that, right? Like, no one ever spoke up about that. But like, there were like, that's what it was for. Right? It was a self-help group. Like a recovery group. You get the idea, right? Like AA, but like not everyone was an alcoholic. Like, you're there because like you're recovering or like you've recovered. You don't go there because you think there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, like, it was just such a fucking infuriating like time with them because of that.
About a lot of the experiences I've had in my life with people that have had therapy. And it might be a certain like new wave kind of therapist that's doing this. The Iron Tiger says, in all honesty, I went to a therapist and their advice was that the problems were the world, not me. I called them a quack and enrolled in martial arts, and that decision changed your life for the better. Yeah, because martial arts teaches you discipline.
Yeah, no, yeah. Any therapist like who says it's the world is a fucking quack. Now, they might say like it's another person if like you genuinely tell them something and like if I said like my stepfather molested me as a kid, they might be like, yeah, that's what the problem is there, right? Like, because sometimes it's not you. Most of the time it is something you can change, but sometimes you can't, right? It's a serenity prayer. Sometimes you can't change the problem, right? Sometimes you have to, like, sometimes you aren't the problem, right? That's also the part of serenity, you know? But, when it comes to, like, what was it? Like, the courage to change the things I can, the serenity like, the serenity to, acknowledge the things I can't and the wisdom to know the difference, right? Like, that's the serenity prayer. Um, you know what I mean? Like there, sometimes other people are the problem. Sometimes you are the problem. And and you should know when like which is which, right? Um, but like the world is never the problem, right? The world always sucked, right? Your life doesn't suck because the world sucks, because the world always sucked, right? The world sucked before you were born. It will suck well after it too, right? But individual people can be the problem in their own life. Now, it might not be you because you might be being abused, right? If someone is slapping the fuck out of you or raping you, right? Hitting you, like, stealing your money, they're the problem. That's the issue, right? That's happened to me. But that's not a thing that, like, all these people are suffering from. In fact, a lot of these people have never even encountered those issues. So, like, yeah, if that's what you're suffering from, hell yeah, they're the issue. But if the problem is like they didn't give you your allowance on time last month, okay, who the fuck cares? Like, you're still like 7 years old on an allowance, motherfucker.
Martial arts is a lot better than just learning how to protect yourself in like kung fu. And martial arts teaches you a lot of discipline, I think, which is really important. Your therapist told you to get a divorce? Yeah.
Paladin Josh donated $13.37.
Like, I have so many, like, I can barely go outside because of my schizophrenia, right? So I stay in and it just like skits out on YouTube because like, it's like nothing's really gonna happen with that, right? So like that's why people like see me crazy some days and like healthy others, right? It's because I'm skitsing out, right? I skits out so often. And I vlog all of this, right? Partially because of evidence of my fucking schizophrenia, because people tend to not believe it because I don't go out and talk to people when I'm skitsing out, So I go on YouTube instead. right? Because it's a way to like out all of that at once, right? Um, so like that people, but like people tell me not to do that, right? Like, don't do that. It's social media. Like you should be like posting your artwork and stuff. And I'm like, dog, you don't know why I do this, okay? Like you're not helping me by discouraging me doing this. Um, you know what I mean? Like this is mental health help for me. I don't have a therapist like you do. I don't have like all this. Like this is what I need to tell them, right? This is my self help because I need to get something out of my system. And you know, like nothing's like I, I always say like, don't take me fucking seriously. I'm just a fucking schizophrenic retard. But you know, like I do kind of skits out. But the thing is, even when I'm skitzing out the most, like a lot of like I still act less assholey than a lot of these people. That's kind of strange, isn't it? Like even at my most mentally low moments, I've never fucking skits it out like as hard as like Dave Rivera or someone like, you know?
Oh, Josh, thank you so much.
It's this weird cycle. People who are the biggest advocates for therapy have been in it forever and never get better and just become walking advertisements and repeat all these same buzzwords.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the tip. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Pal Josh. And I mean, again, I'm not saying that like there's definitely cases in which it can help. Man, actually, it just seems like such a fucking landmine to me. You could get a therapist that just fucks you up even more. You know what I mean? I've recently looked into intensive therapy. In Canada, I'm unable to find a therapist that doesn't have the mind virus in almost every line of their profile. Well, the thing is too is, man, I'm going like kind of deep into this, but the other thing too is when therapists have you, they have you at your most vulnerable, right? Because you're sharing shit with them that like absolutely makes you feel like trash. It's like this, it kind of breaks down like all of your, you know, normally like when you go out in public or, you know, you're with your friends, you have some level of like armor, right? You don't tell everyone everything. You know, again, you keep things to yourself and you have a certain level of like protecting like what actually bothers you, but you don't do that to a therapist. So it's like if there was a therapist that actually did have bad intentions, like or let's even take away
yeah, there definitely are some that do. I have not encountered one, thank fucking God, but there are. And a good way to say it is when they not only agree with you but blame other people like that are not abusing you for, like if it's abuse, right? There's a difference between if someone's abusing you and then like when my stepfather raped me, yeah, that's abuse. You can blame him, right? You can blame him. He's actively causing problems, right? But like, let's say you have a friend who's like really bad with money, you know, or something, right? And you just really like him, and you know all that, right? And then like your therapist will be like blaming like the cashier for like having too high prices or some shit. When that starts happening, like that therapist needs to go, right? I mean, like if they're blaming like, if they're not, won't necessarily blame him, right? For their own problems, but like, you know what I mean? Like, just say, they'll say like, stop giving them money, and stuff like that, right? That's what they'll do, right? They're not gonna be like, oh yeah, just blame like the cashier or some shit. Like there will be like bad therapists that do that though, but like a real good therapist will never do that. They'll never blame the economy, right? Even though the economy sucks right now, they're not gonna blame that because yeah, the economy sucks for everyone. It sucks for the deli man too, right? You know, the deli cashier too. He's having to live it too, you know.
Intentions part, like let's say they actually think it's the right thing, that they were trained and that was the right thing, but all it does is fuck you up more, right? Shaima says, I think the reason this has grown to such prevalence is not because there's a sudden surge of increasingly crazy people, but as a kind of overreactive social immune response. People start behaving to avoid being targeted and yelled at by really crazy people. Do that long enough, more more people start to join the immune response, normalizing and turning those people into attackers too. And yeah, the thing is too, with like the rise of social media, it's a lot easier to see. It's a lot easier to see, and it's a lot easier to find people that you agree with. If you don't expose yourself to people that you disagree with, then all you're gonna do is find a bunch of people that are just yes men, right? It's all like a big hug box, a big.
Yeah, like Elon Musk has that issue right now too. Everyone's like, oh, he's just autistic. It's not like. Here's the thing. It is a Nazi salute. I don't think like that disqualifies him for anything, right? I think like we should just say, yeah, that's not okay, and you need to like simmer down, buddy. Like that's what I think should be said, right? The real thing is, I don't think it should be like a disqualification or anything. I think it's like he is probably autistic and kind of like genuinely like just doofy and retarded, right? So what you do is you say, simmer down, Buster. That's not okay. And there we go, right? Like we can say, like, I think that's the thing. No one's ever like heard the term simmer down, Buster in too long. Like, I didn't say, like, don't do that. Like, you can still, like, do everything else. Like, we're not going to cancel you, but, like, simmer down, bud. Simmer down.
Echo chamber where everyone's telling you it's not your fault. And you see this with like many things. I mean, let's just use let's use health and weight for an example, where you'll have a bunch of people who are like super fat and unhealthy, and everyone's saying like, oh no, you're fine, you're just beautiful just the way you are. And then you start to normalize it, and then nobody wants to fix it because they don't have to. It's not their fault, it's society.
Yeah, like what I always say, like, is like, okay, so look, here's a good way to say it, right? Pyrocynical loves fat stuff, right? Pyrocynical is also like 5 pounds, right, on a heavy day, right? Like, so you know what I mean? Like he's healthy, but he likes, fat. That's fine, right? And if it's some, like, another thing, he might genuinely find fat people attractive. I don't know how his like girlfriend is or whatever. Maybe he just genuinely does find fat people attractive, right? That's fine, right? But not everyone does, right? And most people will never do that. So, like pyrocynical, right? That's who he loves, right? So that's fine, that's fair. But like that's one thing, but like an entire group of populace saying, she's healthy and just nah. If someone looks like the guys that like the girls that pyrocynical gets off to, they need to lose some weight. Right now, obviously, he takes it to fetishistic proportions where like they're like 2 tons. They got a 2-ton dump truck, right? So obviously, like with him, it's even like a fetish, like for ridiculously fat things, which is why it's all drawings anyway. But yeah, most people aren't like going to like that. In fact, I don't even think like anyone would like that kind of person IRL, because in order to be that fucking fat, well, first off, you physically can't. About 1,000, like 200 pounds, I think is the limit for humanity. But like humans can't get fatter than that. They will literally just die after a certain amount of, like, they aren't going to get 2 tons, okay? 4,000 pound like dump truck, that's not going to happen. They will literally die before they get to that high. Okay? So like when I say like some things, like vor is a fetish of mine, right? Did you know that IRL people who vor living animals whole and and consume them and digest them to their death are bad people, right? I get off to that, but I can also acknowledge that yeah, the people who do that IRL are disgusting pieces of shit. But there's a big difference there, right? Like, it's fantasy versus, it's sort of like lolicon versus pedophilia, or furries versus zoophiles, or like people who fantasize with like BDSM and rape, and then people who actually like torture and rape people. You know what I mean? Like, having a fetish for something that just gets you off as like a degradation or domination thing in like writing or art is a lot different from physically wanting to do it to someone IRL, you know? Now, I am healthy about my fetishes, even though I'm not really mentally well. So, to think about it this way, someone who isn't mentally well about their fetishes has to be in a worse state of mind than I am. In my mind, is a train wreck, right? Like if Satan will not never possess me, because if he got inside my head, he would want to leave immediately, right? That's how fucked up my mind is. The devil himself would not reside here. But there are people more fucked up than me. So that's really bad. Like, honestly.
Society's fault. And that's not to say that you should be mean to people who are like that, but I mean, encouraging it is a completely different thing. It's kind of like what I said with things like porn, for instance. Porn and degeneracy. Am I going to go out and like get in people's faces for like liking hentai? I'm not, but like, am I going to also pretend it's the best thing for everybody? No, of course not. It's obviously not good for people. In the same way that like eating too much is not good for people. In the same way, doing nothing with your life and playing games all day isn't good for people. It's not something you should encourage.
Yeah, like I agree. Like, you should exercise, eat healthy, and yeah, I think like porn is fine in moderation, but yeah, don't do it all day. Like, if you're fapping like 12 times a day, get some help. Like, if it's once or twice, right? Like a day, fine, right? Daily fap, sure. Weekly, especially, is fine, right? Monthly, hey, look, okay, you're just doing that just because you know, like, it's just a little free time thing, right? But like monthly is, I'd say, like the healthy like standard, and then weekly is like, you're pushing it. Daily is like, you're like me, like you're kind of fucked up, but you're still okay. Like, I can still like have a beer with you. 12 times a day, you're having some problems there.
Sorry, I kind of went on a fat tangent there. I think someone asked, why do I think this is happening? And it just turned into that long ass tangent. Anyway, we can keep looking at some more of these, actually. And it just looks like they have a bunch of posts kind of along these lines. I had people say things like, you must have had a great father. I grew up with a physically and mentally abusive stepfather. I did not have my fair share. This is the crazy thing too, is some people are kind of unable to separate this out.
You know what? Like, you know that Fresh Renders guy I brought up? Let me talk more about him, right? Because this will like put you into perspective of like how vile this piece of shit was. So when like I was like going homeless, right? About to go homeless. Like, it was like a month away before I went homeless again, right? I had left a group home, right? Where I was being physically and sexually assaulted, as well as financially abused, right? And I still wasn't really okay at this house, but like, I told the guy, like, my friend was helping me like cope with all the stuff and all that, and I told him who the friend was, and that friend was the one that he personally canceled, right? So he went on a tirade on how I was a Nazi sympathizer who should have stayed at the group home I was at and continued to be raped and beaten to half death, and all this other sorts of abuse that I had been going through, because then I wouldn't have gotten help from the Nazi. Very tolerant of you, Mr. Leftist. Very, very tolerant and helpful for you, you know, to call a mentally challenged sexual assault victim and say that they deserve to continue to stay being raped because they considered being helped by someone you deemed a bad person, right? Yeah, like this is like what I mean, like when I say this ideology is trash. Now, I don't even like agree that like every anti-woke, like, I mean, you have seen my videos on Grums and Elon Musk. If you haven't, you know, like, I go pretty ham on them. You know, I go pretty ham on some people, right? And it's not always like a good things that I say. but like, first off, like Elon Musk being a pedophile and Mark Kern being a scam artist, right? I don't like a good way to say it. Like I've always said this: if Mark Kern finished his game, I wouldn't care. I will say that I can't forgive him for the Larry Fink simping. Like Larry Fink's problems like go well beyond DEI. Honestly, if Trump wants to fix the economy, like depowering Larry Fink would be the best way to go about it. And DEI isn't even like the beginning of like why he's a piece of shit. A lot of it has to do with always view Asmongold's like the real reason rent is so damn high through the lens of that company is run through BlackRock. Okay, so view that video, know that that company is run by BlackRock, and now you'll know why I don't like them. And it's not even just because of the DEI. I don't really like the DEI either, but that's a small smidgen of the bullshit that they're slinging,
Right? It's kind of hard to do, to be honest. Like, I am a little bit sympathetic to people that have had that kind of case, and then you kind of see a pattern, and then it makes you distrust.
Like, I know I said behead Larry Fink, really just depower him financially, right? When I'm not skitzing out, I'll say what I mean. And yeah, depower him financially. Get him out of, like, government, like, influence and stuff. And the economy will get better overnight, trust me.
Full of people?
Like, force him to, like revoke all of the ownership he has over all these housing corporations, right? And also force all housing real estate people to be privately owned instead of like publicly owned, and the problem will go away like overnight.
And everyone's like this, right? It's the same. Ironically, it's kind of the same thing as like things like racism, which these people obviously would fight against, right? But it's kind of the same thing. One of our superpowers as humans is pattern recognition. We're really good at that. So when you see a bunch of patterns, like you see a bunch of people fit like a certain pattern of like somebody who has like victimized you before, it makes you weary of everyone else that fits that same mold.
Well, here's the thing, right? You notice how, like, they always said, like, the next fascist would be anti-fascist, right? Like, that was said by, the governor of, the prime minister of the United Kingdom, right after World War II, right? And here's the thing, right? A lot of people don't know this, but did you know that when the Nazis went in to capture Anne Frank, they didn't come in like pounding and turning and stuff. They just gave a little knock, polite knock, came in, had some tea, had some whiskey, gave a little chat. Because that's how people like that are. They aren't mean all the time. People who are mean all the time aren't effective at being mean. People who are mean act like they're nice. Because that's how they get to be mean.
And it's like basically like they're saying that like you must have had a great father. So they're like, I guess people saying that like they're like that because they have a bad father. But then you're lumping all men in with that, right? What's the difference between like you have, your father who is a man?
Like another way of saying it, right? Like if you look at like Adolf Hitler's speech, he sounds really nice in it, right? When you actually like translate it, right? That's the thing, right? There are people who act like I think I know why that's being sent, and I don't think like people realize it. I don't think those people are Nazis or that they simp for Hitler. They just recognize that the NIMBY lefts are the real Nazis by the fact that the NIMBY left acts like that. Right? They'll act all nice and helpful to you, like, "Here, here, you can have some help here," and then like they start being very vile once like they got you in their clutches, right? Yeah. Or once you like try to like talk bad about like their Führer, basically their sacred locales, right? And stuff like that. Like if you really like look at the patterns on how Hitler acted and spoke, the NIMBYs act and speak exactly like him. Fucking rapers act and speak less like Nazis, like actual Nazis did, than like the NIMBY leftists.
man who was abusive to you and now you think all men are evil? What's the difference between that and you got mugged by, like, I don't know, an Asian person or a black person or a Mexican person? And then you thinking that, like, oh, all black people are like that, all Mexican people are like that, all Asians are like that. It's literally the same thing. And those are the people that, like, yell about that stuff the most. Yep, and there, here it is. Says, I grew up with a physically and mentally abusive stepfather, and I did have my share of sexism, as well as, I'm not gonna lie, every time I see this, I think something awful, but I know what it is. But yet I do not generalize men. I have some nasty comments over the past 24 hours, but I got about 100 times more positive DMs. Saying all men do this is sexist, misandrous, and just a straight up lie. God, great people. Oh, this is nice. Saw your comment on stuff with men helped me feel positive myself today, so thank you. Sorry you had to also deal with negative comments as well. I wish you every great day and take care. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good people in this world. But again, like, as humans, we focus on what's negative. That's just kind of psychology, right? There could be like, and this happens with everyone, including myself. I can get like 49 good comments of like, wow, like, I really like this, like, great job. And I'll have one guy that's like, you're the fucking worst. Like, you're the worst fucking.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. This is like super common. Now, for me, I make fun of it because like that's like a way to cope with it, right? Um, but yeah, nah, that's kind of an experience with a lot of people. That's why like I don't pay any like genuine mind to people who hate on me, right? Like if like there are people who are hating on me for my bad audio, right? I do need to fix my audio. But anyone who's like hating on me, like there's people who are like, I'm like a new channel, right? And they're hating on me because I covered Tim Pool and I'm not super duper popular. Even though like I like the things they're saying I'm shitting on him for are like that he looks like a stereotypical like skate park guy, as a way to say, like, people who are saying, you're telling me he's not interested in the skate park, right? So yes, I know he's not actually using drugs. He just looks like he is, right? The entire point of that spiel was to say these people are saying he's not interested in buying the skate park, and to like mock him and like justify their bullshit and harassment towards him. And so I'm saying, like just look at him, right? And people are mad that I kind of like said something that I guess would be insulting, like if I meant it in a serious way of like he's totally that. No, the point was there are people who are justifying their harassment by saying he isn't like into skateboarding. And I said, just look at him, and it described the stereotypical skateboarder who kind of looks exactly like what you would expect Tim Pool to be, right? My entire point of that was that he looks like a guy who would be interested in a skate park, right? It has always looked like that. There has never been a time that I've seen a Tim Pool video where I thought otherwise. Okay, I haven't really watched too many Tim Pool videos, obviously, so I don't really know all his positions, but I do know that he looks like a guy who would be the guy you would see at a skate park. And that was the entire point. But people think that because it sounds mean that I'm being mean when I'm describing like how dumb the leftists are to fall for that kind of rhetoric, when it's clear that you could just look at him and tell he's interested in the skate park. I don't get people like that, you know?
Pick me, piece of shit, like, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, you're fucking racist. I'll get like one comment like that, and that's like the one that I read, and that's the one that sticks with me. You know, like, I think it's just human nature, you know? It's just human nature to focus on the negative, yeah. Ninja Tanuki says, focusing on the negative is a survival instinct, yeah. Another one here, apparently someone got like an...
I find it funny when like someone's like, oh, your video only got a couple hundred views and only a couple likes. I'm like, is that supposed to intimidate me? Like, yeah, most of my videos have less than that. Okay. I'm a very growing boy. Like my channel's not big yet. I get it. That's not intimidating me that I'm not big yet, you know? I don't know why like anyone would feel intimidated by your channel's not overwhelmingly large yet. But it was recommended in my algorithm. Okay? Like what does that have to do with like why am I bad there, you know? For having a small channel that isn't super big yet. I recognize that. Yeah, like it's not insulting. I understand that I'm not popular yet. But also I find it weird that like they're acting like I'm attacking Tim Pool the entire time. But nowhere in the video do I like attack Tim Pool. I just like say that he looks like a stereotypical skateboard guy, and a lot of those guys are junkies. So I add like pothead in there. I think like just as a way to add to the stereotype that he looks like, to point out how dumb it is that the Washington Post and everyone like who is harassing and breaking his park and shit is pretending like he's not like interested in the skate park and like he's not a skater boy. That's what I said, but people looked at the word drug addict being said, like I said he looks like one, and took that as all that they needed to hear, when before and after that, you know, like, so they just heard one word and turned their entire brain off. I don't get it.
Own on them, saying that I hate feminism, by the way. Girl, you need to shut the fuck up, says this. Wow, they have the same name, Kitsu. Kitsu says, I hate feminism, to be honest. Based? I've already stated this, but modern feminism...
Wait, they're both fox girls with red hair named Kitsu. Is this like a dedicated hater? Or like a former fan that's now a dedicated, like...
Yeah,
because
this
like
is
if you look at it, like isn't their at like... Oh no, their ad is there on that. Never mind.
what I mean, modern feminism. Obviously, this is what we're talking about.
After dark. I was thinking like this will be like her at, but then I realized this one has a lowercase and hers is capital. Never mind. I was thinking like this is like literally just a dedicated hater.
We're not talking about like women should have this.
Also, very Christian of you, right? Very Christian of you. Like you know, it's very common. Like there's three things, right? Christian like weebs that act Christian, but then like they don't support any like biblical like any ideas from the Bible, and they just hate, right? They just spread hate on like whatever. In this case, I guess women in general, right? And then like there's also like furries who are like because there's a large queer base of the furry fandom, that everyone needs to like be as gay as possible or they're not real furries. Those guys are also annoying. And then there's NIMBYs, and like all three of them are like the most vile, toxic people ever.
The same rights as men. Like obviously that's already
like grapers too, but I don't really see too many grapers that are people besides like Nick Fuentes and like Kanye, right? And maybe Elon Musk. Everyone else is like a bot, so like you can easily just ignore them because like they're just a bot. Like the back in the day we had people like Hitler Cunny 1488 and stuff like that where it's funny as fuck with the name too. But now it's like Nixon Graper, and like there's not even a joke there. It's just like he's kind of mean, so we're gonna call him a Nazi too. Like what's funny about Nixon Graper? I don't know, because I haven't seen anything yet, you know, that was humorous from it. But that's really the issue with like Grapers. They have one joke and they tell it all the time, loud and obnoxiously. And like they're like, well, you got annoyed by us, like yeah, because you're just everywhere and have one fucking joke. Yeah, like if you repeat the same joke over and over, people get annoyed by it. Yeah, like you just say attack all the country, attack all the country. Like if you say it once, a lot of people will laugh, but if you say it like 1,000 fucking times, it's just like that's fucking lame, dude. Like get like a new one. Like say you're Genital Castro, right? Like say like something funny. Genital Castro. You know, why haven't people said genital Castro yet as like a trans joke? Like it's even like kind of transphobic, right? Like where it's like genitals castration, genital Castro, right? And like I haven't really seen anyone say that. I think it's funny as fuck to say. It's like kind of mean to trans people like me, but it also like is funny and it talks like about like a topic related to it. You know, it's Apache attack helicopter. It's like, okay, that like is like neo pronouns and nothing else. You know, so I'm not even really like a part of that conversation because I don't have that. I'm female, not Zer, right? But yeah.
Been done. We're not talking about that. We're talking about like new feminism, right? Like wage gap sort of stuff, wage gap, abortion, all of these other things. That yes, I don't like any of those either. I like super sexual promiscuity, like all sorts of those things. I've already stated this, but modern feminism is toxic and not needed anymore in the West. I agree. The first wave of feminism was amazing, and if you can't realize that modern feminism is toxic, then you're part of the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I I don't even think really the first wave was amazing. It's just like back then, like no one really like sided with the women haters of it, the movement. So like they had to just be like, okay, we want the right to vote, and that was it, right? Well, like if you look back then, they were like very much like kind of like toxic even back then. Like these were like the reason we had like the 18th Amendment where you couldn't even drink alcohol, which of course gave rise to like Al Capone and shit. So like even back then they weren't really amazing. They're kind of shitty back then. But like people recognize like the important things that they did, like the women's suffrage movement, which was very important. But they forget about all the bad shit, right? But the reason why is because there are good things that they did. The problem with second wave and especially third wave is there's not really a like legitimately positive thing that they accomplished and like the first wave did, right? That's kind of the thing. It's sort of like no one really recognizes like black civil rights after the 60s because well what did they do, right? Like oh they invented like a super soaker, which they did do. They actually did physically, they did do that one. Oh, no, it wasn't the super soaker. No, it was a super soaker and it was something to do with like fridges, right? Those were actual black inventions and those were great. But then like everything else that everyone lists is like not even invented by black people, or it was a invention that they did that was kind of shitty that no one used because of how shitty it was. Like the one traffic light thing. Their traffic lights were invented before them. They invented like their own version of the traffic light and it kind of was shitty, so like no one uses that one, right? But then like you have the fridge technology that we use and it's amazing. It saved millions of lives. But no one talks about that one for whatever fucking reason, because that's important to me. The fact that we have like a life-saving device and like no one talks about that, but like they invented like they invented the holograms, like, but they didn't. They invented something that is like a new twist on it, and sometimes it was good. Like the Super Soaker was amazing. The squirt guns did exist before that, but the Super Soaker is not just a squirt gun, right? Everyone knows it's not just a squirt gun. That Super Soaker was a great invention for like leisure, right? But then they'll be like, so that's the thing, like fridges and Super Soakers, right? And then there are other inventions where like, because the thing is, everyone's like, oh, you didn't invent the first one, so it's not really a real invention. No, that's not how inventions work. Improving on an invention is still an invention. So there are plenty that, black people have done with that as well. The issue is like when it's like, oh, we invented like the wheel. And it's like, no, not really. I mean, I guess like maybe people had black skin who invented the wheel, sure. But like your like civilization did not, like no, like if we go back then, like my ancestors were black back then, so like that's still like the same genetic tree, right? Like at that point, everyone was black. So how does that like improve your argument there, Buster? Right? It doesn't. But like the reason why they do it is they're like, well, if your inventions took from like the reason why no one really gives them like the credence for inventions that improved on other inventions, right? Is because they don't either. Like they're like, well, calculus doesn't count because it relied on algebra, which is from like this Middle Eastern guy, Al Khazari. So therefore, Newton's invention of calculus doesn't count, right? That they'll be like that, and like it's not how it works, Buster, right? Like the invention is like the new thing, right? So yeah, people have added to before and after what calculus is, before Newton. Like there were principles before and after that were made by other people. But like Newton also invented like the ones that were used for gravity, which were important ones, very much so. And like this is really the thing, right? Like there is mathematics that people like mathematics, science, and all that are like an ever evolving thing, just like inventions. So like no one race or creed really owns all of science or medicine or whatever, right? Mathematics, whatever, right? Like everyone is constantly adding to it. Like even today, there's constantly new scientific discoveries on everything, right? Because it's just an infinite wealth of knowledge to gain from the universe and the planet and all things, right? So yeah, I think like treating it like, oh, it's a racial accomplishment that Isaac Newton, who never even had kids, by the way. So it's kind of funny that like everyone's like, 'cause that's the thing, like with racist white people and racist black people, they always like seem to target Isaac Newton as if like he had any kids. Like biologically, Newton had no kids, so no one shares his DNA. Did you know that? Like, I don't share his DNA. I share his skin tone and like maybe like something with my skull, right? But I don't share DNA with Isaac Newton. I did not descend from him. Nobody did because he died a virgin at 80 as well.
I agree with this pretty much. Yeah, it's good of her to explain herself there. A lot of modern feminism is just man hating. The funny thing is like the old school feminists are actually.
Well, people like be like, but maybe his cousin did. But yeah, but we also don't talk about his cousin because his cousin was a doofus loser who didn't do shit with his life, right? Like that's ultimately the thing, right? Now Michelangelo, like that guy is also a genius who actually had people descend from him, right? But then people are like, well, Michelangelo, like they never say Michelangelo. They always say Isaac Newton. But Isaac Newton legitimately, like, pay attention to biology. Nobody shares his DNA. And anyone who is like family with them that had kids, they're not important. And I know that because nobody talks about them. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody talks about the unimportant people because they were unimportant.
Old school feminists that are like kind of follow more of the equality between men and women, a lot of them have shifted over towards men's rights actually, which is pretty funny because they're the ones that are noting that like a lot of men are being left behind in society and not cared about, which
they are like absolutely like DEI, right? Did you know that DEI doesn't even like affect like black men or Hispanic men that much, right? Or even like black and Hispanic women either. It most positively affects white women. And then white trans women. And then black and Hispanic women and black and Hispanic men. And then white men. I always say, like, I think, like, because I'm trans, but, like, I think, like, part of it is also, like, white men wanted, like, the rights and treatments that white women were getting. So they became trans to get those same rights with DEI. And now that's going downhill because a lot of white women who were benefiting from DEI now have to share their DEI benefits from a trans woman who got them because they became a woman through the DEI, like to take advantage of the system that was demeaning them for being a white man before. Yeah, like this is why like DEI was just a terrible idea anyway, because like it's not even benefiting people of color, it's benefiting white women and trans women who are also white more than anyone else.
It's true. Call me a pick me if you want, but I have friends that are men. I have family members that are men. My dad is a man. I care about them and I don't want them to be treated unfairly. I don't see what's so crazy about that. It's so obvious to me. Like, do you want a random person going up to your little cousin who's like 10 years old? That's a little boy, and saying like, you're gonna be fucking toxic when you grow up. You're gonna be the worst piece of shit. And you're gonna go out there and you're gonna rape a bunch of women. Who wants that? You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. One thing I will say though, one aspect, and this also applies to women on like a different level. I'm not going to talk about the woman version of this for now. I'm going to specifically talk about men. Men, natural inclinations, obviously, as human beings, those inclinations, like masculinity, right? You know how you've heard of toxic masculinity and like how there's a lot of negative traits associated with men. The problem is a lot of those aspects, the specific aspects that you see, like, the negative aspects, the drive in that direction is natural, and men have to be channeled, whether that's through having a good mentor that teaches you how to be a good man, or a good father, or a good brother, or whatever that is. Those inclinations have to be channeled towards good, otherwise they shift towards evil. And the same thing occurs with women. So again, I'm not making like this isn't a specifically man thing. Women have their own version of this. You've heard toxic femininity, right? It's the same thing. It has to be channeled, like the nurturing aspect of women has to be channeled into something. Otherwise it becomes it corrupts itself, right? And it's the same thing with men. Again, like the nature of like the aggression, the trying to take care of things, all of that has to be channeled towards good. Otherwise it shifts towards evil. And again, that's just the natural inclination of things, right? Bad masculinity simply isn't toxic, it's destructive. The use of the word alone implies it's a concept born of the feminine framework. No way you have a traditional Christian family. I wouldn't say that. I mean, we love each other, even if we have differences. And I think that's kind of part of being a family, is like having differences and being able to reconcile them. It's not always perfect, and people are not always perfect. And it's learning that not everyone is perfect and accepting that about people is kind of how you grow in your relationships with people. That's why you need positive role models that are the same gender as you. Yes. And that's why you have like a lot of problems with young men that don't have a father in the home, right? Anyway,
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why like single parent houses have like such a high like it's usually almost like single mother houses have like a high like male criminal rate, right? Like everyone likes to bring up like per capita racial statistics, right? To like harass black people. But in reality, the biggest statistic, which affects white men, it doesn't white men, Hispanic men, it doesn't matter the race, is single parent households, right? It's not even necessarily poverty. It's single parent households. Say it with me. Single parent households. It's not that the mothers are like bad people. It's that these people don't have a father figure in their life. So that's why they're like that. It's single parent, usually single mother households. That's where a lot of the criminals come from.
going more into this. Yeah, I agree with this. Actually, I actually like unironically agree with this. I don't like
a good way to say this, right? Black, it's 50, right? 50-13. Single parent, single father households, it's 90 like 2. Okay? There is an issue you can link to. It's not race, it's not gender, it's not ethnicity. It's single parent households.
like modern feminism. It's terrible. It teaches both women and men to not be responsible for themselves.
And the thing is, right? It's not that all of them have that issue. It's that when like someone commits a crime, it's usually out of like what, desperation, lack of a good father figure, right? And or like good mother figure, right? And all that, right? So like you can like treat that, right? You want to know how you treat that? You have someone like help them, right? Like maybe an uncle or something just shows up to like help them and stuff. There you go. right? They have a positive male role model and a positive female role model. There you go.
Society in general actually teaches you
That's
this.
the thing. I had a positive male role model. That's probably why I ended up like this and not as bad as I could have. My uncle. I had an uncle named Chris. That was my father figure, right? It wasn't my dad. It certainly wasn't my stepdad. I had my aunt and my aunt Patricia and my uncle Chris. Those were my mother and father figures in life. You know, my mom was like kind of my mother figure for a bit, but she died when I was 14 from cancer. But my aunt and my uncle, they were my father and mother figures in my life. I didn't have a real mother and father really throughout my life, most of it. But I had my aunt and my uncle. And I didn't turn out okay, but I turned out as best as I could because I had that. That's why I'm probably like just very depressed and schizophrenic. Whereas like anyone like who had like my childhood but didn't have a positive male and female like role model to look at, you know what would have happened to them? They would be shooting up a school or something by now, okay? So like think about it that way. I had just a good mother figure and a good father figure. Not a good mother, not a good father, but a good mother and father figure. And I turned out kind of okay. After everything that happened to me, I turned out kind of okay. The importance of having a mother and father figure in your life is possibly the largest thing you could ever have. Everyone needs them.
To not be responsible for yourself. You're not responsible for any of the problems that you have in your life, and like, you know, fuck it, the government will take care of you. It's so many. It's just a lack of personal like responsibility.
Equality, sadly, is far from obtainable in this day of age with how social media, toxicity on both ends, and many other factors continually keep things ripped apart.
Yeah. The problem, guys, is every time I talk about this shit, I get like slightly emotional. It's a woman thing. I get slightly emotional, and it's like I start to like almost cry, and I have to like hold it back, and it makes it really uncomfortable for me to talk. I start to like kind of
She's blushing, lol.
drone on because like I'm right on the edge of that, you know. Anyway, because it gets me kind of emotional to think about the whole thing because it's fucked up. It's really fucked up, you know. Okay. Yeah, just more like it's pathetic. You're desperate, so sad, man. Dude, she got a lot of these. You're dumb as fuck and wouldn't be allowed to be a VTuber or have any of the BS you do without feminism, by the way. Well, here's the thing. You're conflating. I mean, this is true. You wouldn't be allowed to be a VTuber or be any of the BS that you have without feminism. I mean, it's true, but they're conflating like the equality part of like traditional feminism with
like, obviously some aspects of the LGBT are good too, right? Like ultimately, right? What matters is the good aspects be kept and the bad aspects be thrown away, is what I would say. The hating men is a bad aspect of feminism, right? The trying to groom kids into like the trans ideology is a bad aspect of the trans movement, right? But like trans people like wanting like the right to like dress how they how they please as long as it's like decent, right? Okay, pink shirt culture, all that, right? That was positive, right? Not really caring if like you look like more masculine or feminine perfectly, right? All positive aspects. But as soon as it went beyond that into this bullshit with little kids, it got fucked up, right? And it's a toxic aspect of the community, which is really a niche of the niche, because trans there's already a niche, and now we've got this groomer aspect that's a niche, right? And I'm just going to call it what it is. It's the groomers of the trans movement. That's what that is. Like I don't want to care. I don't care about little kids, right? Look, if a kid's wearing a different like their a dress instead of shirt, sure, whatever. But other than that, like, they shouldn't be doing any of that shit. You know? It needs to, like, we need to call that out, for what it is.
like the kind of neo-feminism, right? And they're using that as a shield. Oh, you don't It's like, oh, you don't agree with the wage gap? Well, you must be against women voting then. You must be against women's equality because you don't think that, even though it's not even related. Isn't it weird how society wants women to take traditionally masculine roles and wants men to take traditionally feminine roles? What if part of the mental health crisis stems from the confusion of what it means to be a man or be a woman? It's possible. Because
I
men
don't agree because, like, what is a traditionally masculine and feminine role, right? Like, if it comes to, like, cooking, right? Like, that's all, like, people acting and stuff. Like, do you mean by traditionally, like, if you mean, like, raising a kid, right? Well, like, the only reason most people do, like, both roles in that regard is because they're a single parent and they kind of have to, right? So a lot of men will, like, go more towards the motherly role when it's, like, a single father and vice versa for women, right? And yeah, that's bad, but, like, that's not something that they can help because it's just them, right? And no one's help. They don't have an uncle or someone around to help them. Um, like, that's the thing. Like, the issue with, like, the real issue with why no one wants to bring up the single parent household thing is because it means that they can help just by being there to help, right? It means that they can just go there and help the issue and it will be solved. No one wants to admit that that's the main issue, even though statistically it is, because that would mean that they could physically do something to reduce that phenomenon. Right? That's why I say NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard. It means you want them to get help, but you don't want to be the one to do it.
are men have interests and are inclined towards certain jobs, and women are the same. Like, women like certain, like, in general, and again, this isn't every woman. There's always going to be, like, outliers. There's always going to be fucking weirdos like me. I like D&D and war games and guns, but that's not the norm. And, like, can we accept that it's not the norm? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like, I think that's the issue, like, accepting it as a norm, right? Like, a man who wears a pink shirt is comfortable with his sexuality and stuff, right? Yeah, that's great, but, like, not every man's gonna be that, you know? That's, I think, like, a thing.
It's not inherently a good thing, and it's not inherently a bad thing. It's just weird. Is your tiny mind even familiar with what's happening to female people in Afghanistan, Korea, any nation under Islamic regime, grooming gangs in the UK? You're despicable, and you speak from a position riddled with privilege. Just because you have it good doesn't mean others do. Wait, what are they talking about? So there's bad culture in these places? Is that what they're saying? There's bad culture in these places, but then that's a man problem? That's fucking weird. You guys want to know the funny thing? Let's say that they're right. Let's say that there are men that are doing these things, which there are. Who's gonna do something about it? Who is it, guys? Who's gonna do something about it? If there was literally, like, women being fucking raped in the streets and killed in the streets and taken into grooming gangs by men in another country, who's gonna stop them? Exactly.
Yeah, like, it's either gonna be men or women in the military and not you, right? There might be some women who help, right? And their roles are important because here's the thing, like, all roles, like, even non-combat and medical, like, roles are important. Also, there's not really a true non-combat role. Like, if you're a medic, you're still kind of in the front lines because there is no real back lines in war anymore. That really hasn't been a thing since, like, the 20s, right? Like, there is no true back line anymore. There's front lines, and then there's front lines that we don't call front lines because they're not meant to be attacked, but people attack them anyway, right? Kind of things, right? Like, people will legit just bomb a fucking base where the medical bay is, just because, like, they think that would, like, and they won't bomb they'll ignore the front lines and just go straight to that, just because of how evil it is, right? And that'll happen in war a lot now, right? There are no true front lines because everywhere is technically a front line, because now they can hit you from anywhere at any distance, and you can't really do anything about it all the time, you know? It's like there's no real front lines anymore because every line is a front line. So none of them are, right? But, like, either way, right? Women doing, like, a medical role is still important. Women doing a technical role is still important. Just like men fighting and dying is still important. Like, all of these roles are important,
It's gonna be other men with guns. It's gonna be good men that are gonna handle it. It's always been like that for like all of history.
I don't think it needs to be good men anymore. It has to be good people, though, right? Women are still going to be part of that role now because, like, nowadays, the roles women play are kind of important as well as men's. So I'm not even going to deny that, right? But I will say this, right? That's not really like the issue there. The issue there is that you aren't. This person isn't serving the military. I know people who are. I know plenty of people who are straight, trans, whatever, right? They have to pretend they're not trans because, it's basically went back to don't ask, don't tell, but only for trans issues, really. But there's plenty of trans people I know in the military, too. I know plenty of soldiers, right? My cousins I have 2 cousins in the military. I have a lot of friends in the military, all sorts of things, right? You know, but here's the thing, right? And it's not just the U.S. military. I know friends in like a completely different country's military. That's how like wide my friend like base goes, right? But you know what they aren't? They aren't these guys. They aren't in any of those, right? All the guys I have are like on good sides, like good, like they're good people. They might not be on like the right side according to who you ask, but they're good people individually, right? And I have them in like militaries worldwide, right? Just about all of them, like that, like aren't like this ship, right? Not Afghanistan or Korea, but yeah. And yeah, it's gonna be good people with guns save you from bad people with guns, right? Because ultimately, like, the only way for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. Now, I put that even in further perspective. There are no good men who will do nothing. Good men who do nothing are just bystanders of evil. They aren't good men, right? So I say, I even like say further than that. Good men who do nothing aren't good men. So that's why evil prevails when good men do nothing, because good men who do nothing don't exist. If a good man sees someone struggling, they aren't going to do nothing, because that good man does a good thing, and when people are hurt, right? You know. But at the same time, like, you can't say, oh, a bystander of evil is as evil as the evil, right? But what it is saying is that, we need to encourage people to be more brave and strong, right, in those situations. But we're not, because we're tearing down masculinity, and now we're wondering why all the men are pussies. I don't know. Who do you think made the men pussies, right? Like, obviously, I'm being hyperbolic. Most men don't give a shit about that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're mad that a lot of men are pussies in, like, scenarios like this, well, why do you think they are? Right? Why do you think the men stop being stoic and brave? Maybe it's because you force them to stop being stoic and brave, right? As the saying goes, behind every great man is an even greater woman, and behind every great man is an even more toxic bitch. Behind every toxic man is an even more toxic bitch.
Until we have, and I actually don't even know if this would solve the problem, but I was gonna say until we have Gundams, it's gonna be fucking like that. And I think even with Gundams, there probably still would be a difference. I think men would still be better at piloting Gundams, probably, just based on some kind of, I don't know, some aggression.
I don't know. It depends on, like, it depends on how the Gundams operate, right? Like, Jaeger style, like, mechs, absolutely, because, that just makes sense to me. Like, men would be like more able to like work together in a kind of thing synchronously than women. With like something like that. But like if it's like a standard mobile suit Gundam, I think women would actually kind of be better, honestly. I'm be honest, I think they would be. But like it depends on how the Gundams have to work, right? Because there's different types of Gundams too.
Like aggression levels, or some kind of just being better at mentally prepared for combat or something. I don't know. And again, that's not to say that like women suck. I'm not saying that. Women have other skills that men aren't as good at. Or are you just engagement farming, hoping more men send you money and thirst over your? Yeah, I mean, this is just. Yeah,
I've always noticed this too. Like people will like find a persona or anime avatar hot as fuck until you say something they disagree with. Like like my friend who got canceled, by the way, was a very popular like animator, right? Everyone was like, it was like a vor artist too. Everyone was simping to like be vored by this guy until this Telegram chat leaked, and then everyone was hating on him. Imagine that. Everyone was like, "Oh, they're so hot. Oh, fuck you, your ugly Sona." Like you noticed that, right? Like everyone's like, "Oh, you make me come. I want to be swallowed by your butthole," and then it's like, "Fuck you, you ugly piece of shit. The Sona design disgusts me."
I mean, if you don't believe, if you're not a raging feminist that hates men, then obviously you're just grifting. You're just saying nice things about men, not because you actually care about men in your life, but because you want money. Yeah, obviously. Thanks for the follow, Jesus. Thank you. The what? Talking about losing followers when these two tweets were probably your best performing tweets. Yeah, they probably did gain more followers from this than lost, I'm guessing. But you still lose people, right? If it's the same thing with like when I do a video about Ukraine and I give like my actual take on it, like there's going to be people that leave because they don't agree with it. But yeah, I mean, but then there's also going to be people that like that you're being honest about it. So it's kind of, it's whatever. And then you say you hate feminism because not needed in the West when women are actively losing their rights in real time. Well, what do you mean by that? I'd love to ask these people what they mean about actively losing their rights in real time, because I'm pretty sure I know what they're talking about. I think there's a lot of women that are against that, and it's not about women losing their rights at all. In fact, like you can make a little mental exercise about this. It's complicated. Maybe I'll go into it.
Yeah, it's abortion, and yeah, some of them, sure. I feel like abortion really like what we had with like the third trimester thing was like the peak of like where it's okay, right? Like past third trimester, it's murder. Before third trimester, yeah, like it depends on circumstances, but we're not gonna judge. Or we might judge, but like we're not gonna like put you in a trial, right? I think like that's a perfectly reasonable like standard, right? They're not really alive yet. Like you can't live on their own. They have no real brain matter or anything before the third trimester. So they're not really truly alive yet. So sure. But after the third trimester, that's like a baby. They can literally be born after a C-section and they'll be fine to live, right? As long as you feed them and take care of them, right? So like I think that's a fine thing, right? But some people don't, and that's fine too. But like that's not really like a rights thing necessarily, because like most women don't even want an abortion that get one. Did you know that most women don't feel good about getting an abortion? It's never an easy choice for most women. Now some women maybe, but the vast majority of women, like you see them after they get an abortion, they feel like they look like the saddest shit you've ever seen, right? Because no one really wants one. They want the child. They just feel like, all this circumstances, right? So that's why, I think that's the conversation that needs to be had. No one really wants one. They're getting one because, they feel like they have to. So, we should make it easier for them to not feel like they have to. And then a lot of abortions will just die down naturally because of that, right? Because that's really it's really an act of desperation usually, right? Nobody feels happy about it. Well, maybe some people do, but very few,
Another time. Anyway, Kizu types says and with the Joe Biden meme, and says, "Oh, sorry, let me rephrase. You're a loser and desperate for male validation because your views are tanking. Hope this helps." God damn.
Long-time YouTube watcher, decided to get it from the source.
Yeah, what's up, Jesus? Thank you so much, man. Why is it always personal attacks? Because they can't attack your argument, that's why. It's the easiest way to basically you try to discredit the other person. You try to discredit them, make them look like they don't know what they're talking about. That way you don't have to address the actual argument that they have. Character
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
Assassination is a common tactic, yeah. I mean, it's very common to just be like, oh, you're grifting. Because what do you say against that? What do you say? You're like, oh, I believe this. Oh, you're grifting. I'm not. Well, yeah, you are. No, I'm not. I'm not grifting. You are grifting. But I'm not. What makes you think I'm grifting? yeah, you're grifting. That's how you literally cannot argue against it. That's why that's why my new tactic is when they do that to me, I just do the same thing back. And dude, they get so mad. I think the sexual revolution was the watershed moment, or most of modern society's ills. Well, like prior to that, right? Prior to the sexual revolution, a lot of sex involved responsibility, or the possibility of responsibility, right? Delicacy Rune, thank you so much for the.
I don't think you can really like tie it down to one thing, and that's really the issue. Everyone wants to tie things down to one thing, but like then they'll like and then like it's never like people though, right? It's never individual people with faces that you can name and see, right? It's always an ideology or a group or a race or a concept, right? It's never these specific people that I can name and see their faces are the problem. And that's really the issue. No one's ever actually looking for who is causing the problem. It's what is causing the problem. And that's the real issue. Because it's never like problems have never known like a specific race or ideology. They've known faces though. Right? They've known like individuals. So we need to go back to some individuals are just fucking vile. And those are the people.
5 gift subs, thank you. And when you kind of like take away responsibility, and when you make it an accident, right? Like, oh, it's
I say NIMBY, but not every person who like is like this is necessarily a problem. Like you get like a lot of this is like fueled by like a lot of this is fueled by like certain sources, right? They constantly like Kotaku constantly like fuels rage bait, right? But not all of Kotaku, just a few of the journalists. You get rid of like Alyssa Mercante and a few others, and a lot of this like goes away, right? And like that's kind of the thing. Just get rid of people who stir shit, and you can name them, right? Like that guy who was like doing that Invincible article, for example. You can name all of them. These are individual names that you can find, and these will like you name these problems, start targeting them with like criminal charges, and the problem starts to go away real quick because a lot of the people like don't realize that what they're doing is wrong and criminal. And if you keep just letting them get away with it, they'll keep doing it, and it'll get worse and worse and worse. And they're often also the source of a lot of these problems. So like it's a few individuals here and there, not like any entire movement or anything. And you start making them face problems, and a lot of the problems start to go away, because it's really like the head honchos of these things. You get rid of them, make them face some consequences, and slowly down the line, you do it like a few people at a time, and then they start disappearing. Because that's how those problems arise, individual level.
an accident that
and
this
once like the propaganda farms are gone, right? The propaganda goes away, and then the propaganda goes away, right? The people who were only like that because of the propaganda also, right, go away.
happened, but I can clean it up. It's another symptom of running away from accountability and responsibility.
And again, a lot of these are also bots. If you like, that also means you can arrest certain people, because then you can just turn off their computers that are running these scripts, right? And then the problem that from that goes away because there's no one running those scripts anymore, right? Right? Yeah. So like attack at individuals, and it starts to go away real quick.
Because prior, in order to like actually engage in that, you had to have the responsibility of like a family. I mean, that's not all the time, but that's kind of
go top down, because if you go top down, right, like it'll like trickle down to the others. Will stop doing it either out of fear or because they never really believed in it in the first place. They just like they just felt like they needed to do it because they were groomed, or they felt like they belonged, or whatever, like in that ideology. And then you show them the errors and the consequences of that thing, and then they'll stop, right? Ultimately, top down, right?
of what society led
Sort of
people.
like pyramid schemes. You don't tackle the bottom of a pyramid scheme. You attack the top, right? Because you attack the bottom, most of those guys are victims of the pyramid scheme, right? You attack the top, the tippy top, the pyramid scheme starts to fall apart real quick. Because really, like, the top is the foundation. So it's really, this is like the foundation, right? Is the triangle is upside down for a pyramid scheme, really, right? The foundation is this one or two guys, and then like there'll be like a few like elites that get a decent payout, and then there'll be like layers of people who get shitty payouts, right? And if you take out the one guy at the top who's really the foundation at the bottom, it starts to crumble away really quickly now, doesn't it, right? Because you're attacking the source, and then like the higher ups, and then like it slowly becomes like, well, the other people didn't really have any power or relevancy anyway, so they're not really the problem, they're just a symptom of the problem. So you tackle the problem and it goes away.
Towards, and even then, like after that, you have things like abortion, which is like, well, you know, like if it fucks
that's
up, like
why
what?
I'm saying, like, gives Larry Fink some legal consequences and take away a lot of his power and influence, and a large amount of the problems will disappear overnight. A lot of them. You know, like a few politicians, like you put away Eric Adams and Gavin Newsom and a few other mayors and politicians, the problems with that go away, right? Because individual levels, millions of people aren't doing this individually because they think it's okay. They're doing it because like they're groomed into like thinking they must defend this ideology to the death. You put a few people away here and there, that entire ideology crumbles apart because it's not really an ideology. It's like a group of people groomed into these ideas, and you start making them face consequences, it goes away. Like cults, right? Cults as well. Like when like someone uses the Bible to like tell people they need to kill their children or something, right? You don't attack like the people at like the bottom, right? The kids who are forced into it. You attack the leader of the cult, and then maybe like his deacons and shit, and then the other people fall in line real quick. It's always start at the top of the problem because that's where it's coming from. If you keep going at the bottom, you'll never actually get rid of it. Go for the top. You know, like, always aim for the head, right? Like, do that, you know? Just do it. It'll solve itself overnight.
Whatever, we'll just kill it, right?